Here's the number nobody put in the chart. $200 a month. Below that threshold, compound interest doesn't stop working. It works so slowly that your account balance is effectively indistinguishable from a basic savings account for the first decade, and most financial calculators are specifically designed to make that invisible. And there's a second number. The charts never show you the exact point in time when your returns start outpacing your contributions. That's called the phase transition. There's a calculable month. It happens for every investor. And right now, I'm going to show you exactly how to find yours. Nobody explains compound interest this way. You've seen the charts, the ones that start small and curve dramatically upward into millions of dollars over a few decades. You ran the same math on your own situation. Maybe you even opened an account. And then you checked the balance a few years later and thought, is this it? That feeling has a name. It's phase one. And understanding it might be the most financially valuable 20 minutes you spend this year. Let me put actual numbers on the problem first, because vague is useless. The S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10% annually over the last century. After adjusting for inflation, closer to 7%. Every single calculation in this video uses 8% conservative, realistic, not a best case scenario, dreamed up to make a chart look good. At $50 a month, 8% annual return, after one full year of consistent investing, you've earned approximately $5 in returns. $5. After 10 years of never missing a single contribution, your account holds roughly $9,200. Of that, almost $6,000 is money you directly deposited. Less than $3,200 came from compounding in an entire decade. After 30 years of perfect, unbroken discipline, $74,500. 30 years, zero missed contributions, $74,500. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that average annual household expenditures in the United States ran approximately $40,000 in 2025. Your 30 years of iron discipline cannot cover 2 years of average living expenses. That isn't a failure of character or effort. That is a threshold problem. And today, I'm going to show you exactly where that threshold lives, what it costs to reach it, and why the instinct most people have when they notice the problem makes everything significantly worse. Here's what I'm going to cover. There are two completely distinct phases of wealth building, and almost every piece of financial advice you've ever encountered treats them as a single continuous process, uses the same language for both, applies the same logic to both. They are not the same thing. They have different rules, different priorities, and a completely different relationship with your return rate. Once you see them as separate, the frustrating parts of your investment journey start making sense, and the decisions that actually matter become obvious. By the way, I built a free early retirement calculator because most online ones are mathematically wrong. It uses BlackRock and Vanguard logic to expose the weak points in your plan. And I only ask for your email to send the report, so I don't store any of your financial data link in the description. Now, I want you to think about compound interest the way a mechanic thinks about a turbocharger. A turbocharger uses an engine's exhaust gas's waste energy, the byproduct of combustion, to spin a turbine that compresses incoming air and forces it back into the cylinders for another pass at power generation. The waste product becomes fuel. Output becomes input. The system amplifies itself. You recognize this structure, a feedback loop where growth generates more growth. That's another name for compound interest. But here's the thing about turbos that most car owners have never been told. They don't work at low RPM. Below a certain engine speed, there isn't enough exhaust pressure to spin the turbine. The turbo is physically present, bolted to the engine block, real part of the system, but it isn't doing anything you can feel. The engine runs entirely on direct combustion. Every bit of power comes from exactly what you put in, nothing more. Then, at a specific RPM threshold, the boost engages. Drivers call this being in boost. The power delivery changes completely. The engine produces significantly more than the fuel input alone should justify. The feedback loop has activated. Your investment portfolio does this exact thing. Before your balance reaches a certain size, You are the engine. Your monthly contributions are the combustion. Your returns are the exhaust, technically cycling back, technically compounding, but not at enough pressure to spin anything meaningful in your real financial life. The turbo is there, it's running. But before the turbo kicks in, you're providing all the power yourself, manually, every single month. The threshold where the boost engages, where compounding starts doing more work than your contributions, tends to fall somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 in total invested assets. I'll show you the math behind that number shortly. Every dollar you contribute in phase one is getting the engine up to the RPM where the boost kicks in. That's the entire game in phase one. Everything you do to accelerate that process, earning more, cutting unnecessary spending, redirecting raises, any extra income serves exactly one goal: getting the pile large enough for the percentage to matter. Before the turbo kicks in, contributions are the strategy. Compounding is the reward you collect after. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you the single most common mistake phase one investors make, the one that feels like the smart move and almost always makes things worse. But first, here's the actual math that the pretty charts keep hiding from you. All of these calculations use 8% annual return, monthly compounding, same time frames. The only variable is how much goes in per month. $50 a month, 10 years, $9,200. 20 years, $29,500. 30 years, $74,500. $200 a month. 10 years, $36,800. 20 years, $117,800. 30 years, $298,000. $400 a month. 10 years, $73,700. 20 years, $235,600. 30 years, $596,000. The interest rate, constant. The time frame, constant. The only variable was how much went in each month. And the 30-year result moved from $74,500 to $596,000. But that table hides the number that actually matters most. At $50 a month, your portfolio never crosses $100,000. Not in 20 years, not in 30. You spend your entire investing lifetime in phase one. The turbo never reaches the RPM to engage. You grind through 3 full decades and never arrive in boost. At $400 a month, you cross $100,000 around year 14. After that crossing, compounding starts visibly outpacing your contributions. The monthly split flips. Phase two has started. And you have 16 years of phase two compounding before you hit the 30-year mark, which is where the terminal balance difference between $400 a month and $50 a month stops being a math problem and starts being the difference between a retirement and a part-time job into your 70s. Andrew Hallam was a high school English teacher in British Columbia who retired with over $1 million on a teacher's salary. He wrote a book about it called The Millionaire Teacher. People who encounter that story almost always extract the frugality lesson. Drive old cars, pack your lunch, avoid lifestyle inflation. All of that is in the book, and all of it is true. But they miss the mechanism. The frugality wasn't the point. The frugality was how he funded a high enough monthly contribution to cross the threshold while he still had enough time left for phase two compounding to do serious work. His final decade before retirement, by his own account, felt almost effortless. The math had taken over. He barely had to think about it. The engine was running on the turbo. Before the turbo kicks in, you're packing lunches. After it kicks in, the lunches don't matter anymore. The engine has its own momentum. Nobody posts the packing lunch years. Social media shows you year 18. You compare your month 40 and conclude your strategy is wrong. The strategy is not wrong. You are in a different part of the same journey. Now here is what nobody is actually telling you about phase one. And this is the reversal that reframes everything. When most people hit the phase one feeling the dull frustration of checking a balance after several years of consistent investing and seeing underwhelming numbers, they make a diagnosis. The diagnosis is almost always, my return rate is too low. So they start chasing. You think the problem is your return rate. The actual problem is your contribution level. Let me prove this with numbers, because this is the kind of argument that collapses without them. $200 a month at 8%. 10 years, $36,800. Now let's say you somehow double your annual return from 8% to 16%, consistently for 10 years. This is a number that most institutional fund managers in the world don't hit on a sustained basis. PIMCO, Fidelity, the major quant funds, very few sustain 16% annualized over a decade. But let's assume you manage it. 10 years at 16%, $200 a month, approximately $52,200. That's $15,400 more than the 8% result. It sounds significant until you understand what achieving 16% actually costs in real behavioral terms. You're taking on volatility that drops your portfolio 40 to 50% in bad years. Dalbar, the financial analytics firm that has tracked actual investor behavior since the 1980s, reports in their annual quantitative analysis that the average equity fund investor underperforms the S&P 500 by 2 to 3% annually over long periods. The primary cause? Panic selling at market lows and chasing recent performance. The 16% theoretical return produces something closer to 8 or 9% in real human hands and gets there via several genuinely traumatic portfolio events that most people aren't emotionally equipped for. I know a guy who runs a small manufacturing business, sharp with operations, not particularly interested in markets, who was doing exactly this in 2018. He'd been contributing $200 a month consistently for 6 years. Account had grown to almost $20,000. Then he heard about a biotech stock at a dinner party. Redirected 4 months of contributions. By the summer of 2019, the position had lost 60% of its value. He didn't lose his life savings. But those 4 months of contributions, $800, weren't in his account compounding anymore. And the real cost isn't the $800. It's the 30 plus years that $800 was supposed to compound. At 8% over 30 years, that $800 was worth roughly $8,500 at the end. Gone from one dinner party conversation. Now, instead of chasing returns, what if you increased your monthly contribution from $200 to $350? Same boring 8%, same 10-year frame, same index fund you already own, $350 a month for 10 years at 8%, approximately $64,000. More money, less risk, no dinner party disaster, no panic decisions, no trading fees or tax events. The contribution increase beats return chasing every single time when your balance is small. Not as a general principle, as arithmetic. By the way, hit subscribe if you're getting value from this. Otherwise, YouTube's algorithm may genuinely never surface my videos to you again, and I cover this kind of analysis every week. The reason financial media almost never makes this argument clearly is structural. There's no product attached to increase your contribution to a boring index fund and wait. A brokerage account you add money to and don't touch generates almost nothing in trading fees, advisory revenue, or fund management income. Complex strategies, active fund selection, premium access, timing decisions, those are monetizable. Boring contribution discipline is not. Your return rate is the interesting number. It generates articles, comparison tools, YouTube thumbnails, debates. In phase 1, it barely matters. The lever that moves your outcome is not the market, it's what you deposit. Think about the dollar output of 8% at different balance levels. 8% of $10,000 is $800 a year, $67 a month. That doesn't change your financial picture. That's a tank of gas. 8% of $100,000 is $8,000 a year, $667 a month. That's real monthly income from doing nothing. 8% of $500,000 is $40,000 a year, $3,333 a month. That's retirement income. That's financial independence. Same percentage, completely different life. The only variable is the size of the pile. Phase 1 is pile building. The percentage is noise until the pile is large enough for the percentage to produce output you can feel. And this is where fees become genuinely dangerous, not in the vague fees add up way that financial content always phrases it, but in specific calculable dollar amounts that are worth understanding. A 1% annual advisory fee on a portfolio earning 8% before fees leaves, you earning 7% after. Over 30 years, a $100,000 portfolio at 8% grows to approximately $1,006,000. At 7%, it grows to approximately $761,000. The fee costs you $245,000. Not the fee itself, the compounding of the fee's absence accumulated over 3 decades. The insidious part, the damage is invisible in phase 1, when your account is $16,000 and the fee is $160 a year. It registers as catastrophic only when you're in phase 2 and you do the backward math. By then, it's already happened. Your financial advisor, carefully monitoring your well-diversified portfolio while you stress over whether to be in the 8.2% fund or the 8.7% fund. Perfect. Keep watching right there. Now stay with me, because this is where the video moves from the math problem to the more expensive problem. The one that the spreadsheet can't capture on its own. Phase 1 doesn't fail because the math stops working. It fails because the math works so slowly that most investors' brains misread the results as evidence that the strategy itself is broken. Richard Thaler, behavioral economist and Nobel laureate in 2017, described what he called the feedback gap problem in financial motivation. Humans continue behaviors when they produce visible results. They abandon behaviors that appear not to produce results. Compound interest in phase 1 generates returns so small they fall below the perceptual threshold, the minimum output level the human brain registers as meaningful progress. Your brain reads, not working. The accurate reading is working exactly as designed at a scale too small to feel yet. That gap between mathematical reality and felt experience is where the most expensive financial decision gets made. Not panic selling, though panic selling is expensive. The most expensive phase 1 mistake is the strategy switch. You correctly identify that something needs to change. You incorrectly diagnose what it is. You move from an index fund into individual stocks, or you redirect several months of contributions into something speculative, or you sign up for a stock picking newsletter. And now you're not doing phase 1 investing anymore. You're trading. Entirely different activity, completely different set of historical odds. Terence Odian and Brad Barber at UC Berkeley published research in the Journal of Finance in 2000, tracking 66,000 individual brokerage accounts over a 6-year period in the 90s. Their finding? The most active traders earned annual returns of 11.4% during a period when the market returned 17.9%. A 6.5% annual underperformance, primarily driven by trading costs and the behavioral tendency to buy recent winners after they've already run. The least active accounts nearly matched the market return exactly. Doing nothing in phase 1 is not passive failure. It is the statistically optimal decision. The problem is it doesn't look like a decision. It looks like waiting, and waiting feels like not doing anything about the problem. Nobody posts the phase 1 screenshots. Finance communities online are full of phase 2 portfolio balances with cheerful captions. You're comparing your month 38 to someone else's year 19 and concluding your strategy is defective. Your strategy is not defective. You are in a different part of the same journey. Staying disciplined through all of phase 1, by the way, is the highest performing strategy available to a small investor. I understand that's impossible to make into a thumbnail. Here's where I want to bring in a specific situation, because the abstract becomes real when it has a name attached to it. Marcus is 38, works in logistics management, earns around $78,000 a year, a solid income by most American standards. 8 years ago, his company launched a 401k plan. His HR representative walked him through the enrollment. He picked a diversified target date index fund. He set up automatic contributions of $150 a month. He has never missed a single contribution. He has never panic sold. He checks his balance quarterly and reads some financial content on weekends. His current balance, $16,500. He's done the arithmetic. He's contributed approximately $14,400 over 8 years. Returns have added about $2,100. $2,100 from 8 years of consistent, disciplined investing. He's starting to wonder if the whole thing is designed for people who already have money, people with large enough accounts that the percentages produce output that actually matters. He's been looking at a friend's real estate deals. He heard about a fintech stock that doubled last year. Marcus isn't making a math error, and he's not doing anything wrong. His engine is running exactly as designed. But at $150 a month, he's been well below the boost threshold the entire time, and he will remain there for decades at this trajectory. The answer for Marcus isn't a different vehicle. It's more fuel in the same engine. Here's what the numbers actually show for Marcus. Starting today at 38, with 27 years until 65. Scenario 1. Marcus keeps contributing $150 a month. At 65, his balance sits at approximately $121,000. He cannot retire on that. He'll be supplementing Social Security well into his early 70s and hoping his health cooperates. Scenario 2. Marcus increases to $400 a month. $250 more per month, less than half the average American car payment, according to Experian's 2025 data. Roughly 3.8% of his gross monthly income. At 65, approximately $337,000. 3 times the result from less than 3 times the contribution increase. Because crossing the threshold earlier gives phase 2 compounding more years to run at full power. Scenario 3. Marcus gets to $600 a month, achievable with 1 evening of rideshare driving per week in most metro areas at current platform average earnings. At 65, approximately $537,000. Combined with Social Security and reasonable sequence of returns management in his final years, that's a genuine retirement on his own timeline. The difference between $121,000 and $537,000 is not intelligence. It's not a secret investment strategy. It's not timing the market or finding the right fund. It's $250 extra a month, redirected before lifestyle absorbs it. In scenario 2, Marcus crosses $100,000, the boost threshold around when he turns 51. In scenario 3, he crosses it around 48. 3 extra years of phase 2 compounding is the mechanism behind almost $200,000 of additional terminal wealth. Before the turbo kicks in, crossing the threshold even slightly earlier is worth dramatically more than it looks in the near term. Here are the 3 levels for getting there faster. Not generic advice, specific mechanisms with specific actions. Level 1 is contribution right-sizing. The most common reason people invest less than they should is institutional inertia, not inability. They set up automatic contributions when they opened the account and never updated them. Income has grown, fixed expenses have shifted, cost of living has changed. The autopay still says whatever number they typed into an enrollment form years ago because updating it takes 15 minutes that never gets scheduled. The action is specific. Log in today and increase your monthly contribution by $50. Not a life-altering budget overhaul. 1 login, 1 change. Over 20 years, at 8%, $50 extra a month compounds to approximately $29,400 from 1 15-minute decision. Then create a recurring calendar reminder for every January 1st to review and increase the number again. You don't have to decide in advance how much to increase it. Reviewing it annually means you'll catch the years when a raise came and went without being redirected. That's the entire system for level 1. Level 2 is income growth redirection. Most people are on a slow but real upward trajectory in earnings across their careers. Raises happen, annual bonuses happen, tax refunds happen, side income happens. And in nearly every case, within 90 days of receiving more income, the lifestyle has absorbed it. Not through deliberate decisions. The money diffuses into slightly nicer habits, slightly more convenient services, slightly newer versions of things you already owned. The lifestyle ratchet clicks forward automatically. Nobody decided to spend more. It just happened. The rule that works, and I mean this is the mechanism behind the portfolio outcomes I've seen in people I know personally, not theoretical investors, is to redirect 50% of every net income increase directly into investments before lifestyle calculates that it has new budget. Your lifestyle still improves on the other 50%. Your threshold timeline accelerates. Both things happen simultaneously, with zero deprivation. The single critical variable is speed. The longer the gap between receiving new income and executing the investment decision, the lower the probability the investment decision actually gets made. Same-day automation eliminates the decision entirely. Your future self, handed new money without prior instructions, will spend it. Your current self, making the decision in advance and automating it today, will invest it. Level 3 is life event contribution resets. There are predictable financial moments in most adult lives where a significant recurring expense ends permanently. A car loan paid off, a student loan cleared, a child becoming financially independent, a mortgage refinance at a meaningfully lower rate. Each of these moments creates a window of unallocated monthly cash flow that doesn't yet have a destination. The average American car payment in 2025 ran just over $700 a month according to Experian data. When that loan ends, $700 per month is suddenly free. Most people don't consciously decide what happens next. Within 3 months, the lifestyle has quietly claimed it. It went toward subscriptions, dining, a slightly nicer version of something, and nowhere in particular. An intentional investor executes a contribution increase the day the final payment clears, not when they get around to it, that specific day. Before the lifestyle knows the money is free, redirect $300 to $400 into investments. Let the remaining $300 to $400 improve daily comfort. Both things happen, the threshold moves forward, nobody feels deprived. This is architecture, not willpower. You design the system so the correct financial decision executes automatically at the moment when behavioral friction is lowest. The decision your current self makes in the abstract is the one that actually runs. The decision your future self makes while holding newly freed cash flow almost never goes to investments. Here is what I've been building toward since the beginning of this video. I save this for here because it lands harder once you've seen the full picture. The years that matter most in a 30-year compounding journey are not the final 5, even though those years produce the largest absolute dollar increases on your statement. The years that matter most are the first 5. $1 invested in month 1 of your portfolio at 8% annually becomes approximately $10.60 after 30 years. That same dollar invested in year 25 of your portfolio compounds for 5 remaining years and becomes approximately $1.47. Your earliest dollars are worth more than 7 times your later dollars in raw compounding power, which means every month you invest below the threshold, every year you stall on increasing your contribution, every raise that your lifestyle absorbed before you redirected it, you are not losing small amounts of money. You are sacrificing the most expensive dollars in your entire portfolio, the ones with the longest runway, the ones that will compound for 30 years instead of 5. The start small advice isn't wrong. $50 a month is better than 0. But start small was never meant to mean stay small indefinitely. It meant lower the activation energy to begin, get the habit running, open the account, build the behavior. And then as fast as your life allows, as early in the journey as possible, grow the number. Because the early years are where your most powerful compounding dollars live. Not the late ones, the early ones. Before the turbo kicks in, your monthly contributions aren't just savings. They are the raw material of your future compounding engine. Every dollar that arrives late in your investing life is worth a fraction of what it would have been worth arriving early. Treating your contribution as optional, as whatever is left at the end of the month money, is the most expensive financial habit most people carry. Marcus increased his 401k contribution to $400 a month last quarter. His car loan ends in 8 months. He's already decided, not planning to decide, already decided to redirect $250 of that freed up payment into his investment account the day the final check clears. Not when he gets around to it, that day. He won't feel any different in year 2 or year 5. But sometime around year 10, when he turns 48 and his account balance crosses $100,000, his monthly statement is going to look different. The returns line will start to rival the contribution line. The split will be shifting. The turbo will be kicking in. And he'll have 17 years of phase 2 compounding before he decides whether he still wants to be working at 65. Here are 3 specific things to do with what you learned today, calibrated to this topic only. First, calculate your current contribution to return ratio. Pull up last month's investment account statement. Find the return portion only the amount your account gained from market performance, not what you contributed. Divide that by your monthly contribution amount. If contributions account for more than 70% of your monthly account growth, you are in phase 1. Your priority is contribution growth, not return rate optimization, not fund research, not rebalancing schedules. The most valuable hour you can spend this week is finding an extra $50 a month, not determining whether to be in the fund returning 8.2% versus 8.7%. Second, set your threshold date. Using any compound interest calculator online, find the year your portfolio is projected to cross $100,000 based on your current balance and current monthly contribution. Write that year down, then ask, what monthly contribution would get me to that number 2 years earlier? Run the math on what 2 extra years of phase 2 compounding produces in your final balance. That number will be larger than virtually anything a return rate optimization strategy could realistically generate. The threshold date is the number you should be managing your financial life around, not the return rate. Third, pre-decide your next income event. When is your next raise, bonus, tax refund, or loan payoff realistically going to arrive? Write the approximate date. Write the expected amount. Write the specific percentage you will redirect to investments the moment it lands. Make this decision right now, before the money exists, in writing. The decision made in the abstract today, while there's no actual cash in your hand, is the one that executes correctly. The decision made in the moment, while holding new money and standing next to a car dealership or a home renovation idea, almost never goes to investments. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. And the investors who built it weren't waiting for a better fund, a better market, or a better version of themselves to appear. They figured out which phase they were in. They got the engine up to speed. They crossed the threshold. And then they did something that looks, from the outside, like almost nothing, while the math ran everything.